In the area today known as Nigeria, milk-producing animals have been domesticated for thousands of years. Initially, they were part of subsistence farming that nomads engaged in. As the community moved about, their animals accompanied them. Protecting and feeding animals were a big part of the symbiotic relationship between animals and the herders. In the most recent past, people in agricultural societies owned dairy animals that they milked for domestic and local consumption, a typical example of a cottage industry. The animals might serve multiple purposes, for example, as a drought animal for pulling a plow as a youngster, and at the end of its useful life, as meat. In this case, the animals were normally milked by hand, and the herd size was quite small, so that all the animals could be milked in less than an hour, about 10 per milker. With industrialization and urbanization, the supply of milk became a commercial industry, with specialized breeds of cattle being developed for dairy as distinct from beef or drought animals. Initially, more people were employed as milkers, but it soon turned to mechanization, with machines designed to do the milking. The Tertiary Education Trust Fund is alert to such a gigantic opportunity for Nigeria. TETFund is convinced that the most effective way to harness this wealth of opportunity is through research and development, a paradigm shift in its interventions that is inspired by the Executive Secretary of TETFund, Professor Suleiman Elias Bogoro, and supported by its Board of Trustees.
Many industries in this country, including some conglomerates, they have been outsourcing competence and opportunity for expertise in addressing problems of some of the industries. Outsourcing in the sense that they're not even using Nigerians. When I came in 2014, I made a case for institutionalization of what R&D, research and development. And that was when, more recently, the National Universities Commission, the NBTE, NCCE were working together in partnership with industry, Economic Summit Group, Manufacturing Association of Nigeria, TETFund. We formed the triple helix model of working together. We want to make a case for the establishment of National R&D Foundation for Nigeria that should change the whole narrative about looking at the research just in a narrow context. No, the industry has to be a participant. TETFund is playing its role to change that narrative.
Research is important. In fact, it is a prerequisite for national development. No nation can develop without research. I acknowledge the role of research. I concede that if we put our physical infrastructure across all the universities and we don't fund research and scholarship, the universities will only be half fulfilled. So we must fund research.
In response to this awareness, TETFund established a Center of Excellence at the Tafawa Balewa University, Bauchi, to focus on food security.
We have all kinds of vegetation varying from the northern part that is Sahelian, arid, so to say, and then the central part is in between, and then the southern part is more of a savanna. So you find out that because of the nature of vegetation, you find out that we have a lot of agricultural activities going on. Because of that, we have a large population of livestock in Bauchi State, ranging from cattle, sheep, goats, horses, donkeys. So actually, because of the geography, you find out that we have a lot of agricultural activities going on, both arable farming as well as livestock. So it's quite a state that is actually a hub of agricultural activities. Our vision is to be a world-class center for dairy research and development, comparable to any in the world.
Nigeria's dairy industry is cultivated on a subsistent basis and characterized by low productivity. Despite the abundance of natural resources required for milk production, Nigeria's milk production accounts for only 13% of West African production. Currently, domestic production dwarfs local demand, leading to a shortfall that has often been met by imports. According to the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, importation of milk gulps between $1.2 to $1.5 billion annually.
Northeast generally, if you look at it, Northeast is a hub of large and small ruminants in Nigeria. But if you look at the yield of milk in this country, the best a cow can give you is 2 liters a day, whereas you could get up to 35, 50 liters of milk a day from a cow. And we also know that milk is essential for the growth of our economy. It's essential for the health and nutritional value of society. In developed countries, every child must have a glass of milk every morning and every evening. But if you come to this country looking for milk, you're in trouble. I have a colleague who came from the UK. She went to Mina and she was used to taking milk. She was looking for milk in the entire Mina. She couldn't get fresh milk in Nigeria. If we really want to help our economy, if we want our children not to have stunted growth, if you want balanced growth, if you want our children to be very, very intelligent and bright, they have to be taking milk. But where is the milk? So this is one of the reasons why we are focusing largely on dairy production. Let people know that you don't need to have 50 cows to survive. You just need 3 good cows. 3 good cows is more than enough for you. 3 good cows can give you over 100 liters of milk per day.
We spend, from reports, about $2 billion importing milk and milk products. That is huge, Now, we produce our animals, if you look at, because of the poor productivity, we produce just about, precisely the statistics, maybe 500 million liters annually. But so what we are generating is not enough for consumption. By the time we employ the various activities within the centers of excellence, for instance, or faculties of agriculture, faculties of veterinary medicine, and so on, and then we are now able to keep animals that are high-yielding animals that can generate milk for us, then we can now begin to think of the quantity that will be enough for us to now start exporting. But definitely, if the trend we are following now, if you continue along those lines, we will definitely start exporting milk.
Asides low yield of production, the productivity of cattle breeds has been hampered by long distances covered for grazing, inadequate supply of feed and water, alongside poor rearing practices by dairy farmers. This has resulted in lower milk yields, making local milk manufacturers shun sources of low milk locally and ultimately reducing the commercial viability of local cattle rearing.
If you keep an indigenous cow, for instance, the maximum quantity of milk you are going to get from her, 1 to 2 liters. And the 2 liters, you are competing with the calf because the calf needs the milk. The humans are actually competing with the calves. So 2 liters is grossly inadequate. But that is actually as a result of the genetic makeup of the animals. This is a major challenge, it's a major constraint, and that is actually what we are trying to address.
In developing countries, the past practice of farmers marketing milk in their own neighborhoods is changing rapidly. Notable developments include considerable foreign investment in the dairy industry and a growing role for dairy cooperatives. Thanks to TETFund, output of milk is growing rapidly in Nigeria and presents a major source of income growth for many farmers. In major milk-producing countries, most milk is distributed through wholesale markets. In Ireland and Australia, for example, farmers' cooperatives own many of the large-scale processors, while in the United States, farmers and processors do business through individual contracts. But for Nigeria to join the league of these big-time producers, it comes down to how well the Nigerian breed of cattle is crossbred with exotic cattle for balance in resilience and productivity.
We are trying to upgrade the genetic resources of such animals, selection or maybe breed improvement to really scale up the performance, the reproductive performance, the productivity of the cattle. The scaling up is going to be like, for instance, for selection, you can pick an animal and just say, okay, let me see her progeny, let me see her pedigree, her individual performance, and so on. That is for selection. But the other bit is breed improvement, like a crossbreeding program, for instance. You can cross. Crossing here is you can use the females, our own females, that is the ready-to-breed heifers. You can use them as your female stock, and maybe first variety cows and so on for the females. And then for the males, because we want to upgrade, we are now going to use semen, for instance now, from an exotic breed. And we have records to support that you can use Frisian semen on our indigenous ready-to-breed heifers. The crossbreds are actually in between. They are having 50% of indigenous blood. They are also having 50% of the exotic. The father here, or the semen used, is actually from exotic. So the advantage the crossbreeds are having is, because they have traits of exotic, they will give the productivity will now increase. Now, they also have the traits of indigenous. Because of that, they will be able to now adapt to our harsh environment. We are bedeviled by harsh environmental factors. They will also adapt to disease conditions and so on. So what we are saying is, if you are able to generate a cross, it will be able to survive our environment because of the 50% trait from indigenous. It will also be able to give you high yield because of the trait from the exotic. An example, you are asking me for the quantity of milk. I'm telling you 1 to 2 liters if it is an indigenous breed. But if you cross, the crossbreed will give you 15 to 20 liters.
In addition to this crucial boost in the volume of milk from crossbred cattle, there are other important changes that create greater opportunity for higher turnover.
If you have an indigenous calf and a cross calf, maybe day old, if you weigh them at birth, you find out that there is enormous difference. An indigenous calf will weigh maybe some 20 kg, 25 kg, but you find a cross weighing 35, 40 kg. So the cross from onset is having advantage over the indigenous. So the growth rate is going to be faster, that is one. The attainment of puberty, for instance, is also going to be much shorter. You find out that at 1 year, 1.5 years, they have already attained puberty and they can be bred. So you can imagine the generation interval is reduced because you are having an animal that is conceiving at a very young age. So you find out that the generation interval is going to be much more than if you are using a pure indigenous breed.
Why do we have cows that cannot be competitive in terms of sizes with their colleagues? Why is it that an average size of an animal that will be slaughtered in the US is about a ton, 1,000 kilogram, and the highest you have over here is 250 and 300? That's why they call your cows, the so-called cows there, they call them big goats. And it's because the way we have messed up a lot of places in the environment, we have messed up the internal environment of these animals because there are no conservation. the elite animals that you will have selected, that, hey, this animal is looking exceptionally good. The next thing we're going to do to that particular animal is that we are going to slaughter it and eat it. No conservation.
When fully developed, the dairy industry provides an opportunity for a value chain with employment opportunities to many young Nigerians. Plants producing liquid milk and products with short shelf life, such as yogurts, creams, and soft cheeses, tend to be located on the outskirts of modern centers close to consumer markets, while plants manufacturing items with longer shelf life, such as butter, milk powders, cheese, and whey powders, tend to be situated in rural areas closer to the milk supply.
For you to get the product, you need to keep animals. So, like we've just described how to generate crosses, assuming you have indigenous, you have crosses, you have pure breeds, pure exotic, and so on and so forth. So you have people now that are going to man the huts, starting from there. That is the source of the product we are talking about. And then if you move further, collection of the product. If you go further again, if you collect the product now, you will start processing. So another chain, processing the product, and then after processing, you store the product. After that, and then you talk about marketing, you talk about distribution. So it's a chain, right from looking at the source, the animal, up to the point when you finish processing, and then it's out for marketing or it's out for distribution. So the whole of this chain, you find out that you will fix a lot of, or you find a lot of jobs to occupy these various components of the dairy industry.
Dairy plants process the raw milk that they receive from farmers so as to extend its marketable life. Two main types of processes are employed: heat treatment to ensure safety of milk for human consumption and to lengthen shelf life, and dehydrating dairy products such as butter, hard cheese, and milk powders so that they can be stored. The executive secretary of TETFund, in his personal capacity as an academic, has also made an immense contribution to healthy cows that can produce increased amounts of milk through the invention of the Rumen fermentation model, which is in the process of receiving a patent.
It's a model that was developed from my PhD research. And we've applied it and undertaken some publications in credible journals in respect of that particular fermentation model, called Rumen fermentation model. Biological science, you knew it in those days, we talk about some animal with 4 stomachs. The rumen is the largest component, and its fermentation, the environment is anaerobic, essentially. And it's that aspect that we looked at the metabolites, in other words, the breakdown, the biochemical breakdown products, as we call the metabolites, from them, and put a number of factors, including, of course, the pH, the osmotic pressure in the system, and so on and so forth. So we defined it in that particular model in a way that if you understood what they were consuming, the grass, the proteins that went with it, you are able to understand the proportions of those materials. You analyze them. You develop a statistical correlation with those feed stuffs. That gives you a leeway to be able to predict what is desirable, and you can extend it depending on the analytical content, the chemical analytical content of those other materials that you are feeding to ruminant animals.
There are numerous dairy products that can be sourced from milk. Here are a few of them that Nigeria can be known for if research for development is placed at the heart of our decision-making. Cream and butter. Today, milk is separated by huge machines in bulk into cream and skim milk. The cream is processed to produce various consumer products depending on its thickness, its suitability for culinary use, and consumer demand, which differs from place to place and country to country. Cream from factories is made into butter. This is done by churning the cream until it forms a monolithic mass. This butter mass is washed and sometimes salted to improve keeping qualities. The residual buttermilk goes on to further processing. The butter is then packaged and chilled for storage and sale. Skimmed milk. The product left after cream is removed is called skim or skimmed milk. To make a consumable liquid, a portion of cream is returned to the skim milk to make low-fat milk for human consumption. By varying the amount of cream returned, producers can make a variety of low-fat milks to suit their local market. Cheese. Cheese is another product that's made from milk. Whole milk is reacted to form curds that can be compressed, processed, and stored to form cheese. In countries where milk is legally allowed to be processed without pasteurization, a wide range of cheeses can be made using bacteria found in the milk. Whey. In earlier times, whey or milk serum is considered to be waste product and was mostly fed to pigs as a convenient means of disposal. Beginning about 1950 and mostly since 1980, lactose and other products, mainly food additives, are made from both cheese and whey. Yogurt. Yogurt making is a process similar to cheese making, only the process is arrested before the curd becomes very hard. Milk powders. Milk is also processed by various drying processes into powders. Whole milk, skim milk, buttermilk, and whey products are dried into powder form and used for human and animal consumption. The main difference between production of powders for human or for animal consumption is in the protection of the process and the product from contamination. Some people drink milk reconstituted from powdered milk because milk is about 88% water and is much cheaper to transport in dry form.
It's multidisciplinary teamwork encompassing a lot of experts. For instance, there's dairy science, there's plant science, you have the environment. In the dairy science, we will look at, or we will include veterinary doctors, nutritionists, we will include reproductive physiologists, we will include breeding and geneticists. That is for the dairy science. For the plant science, we are also going to look, because it is multifaceted, so we are also going to look at the plant aspect, the plant science aspect, and in which case we are going to include experts in agronomy. So we are going to look at agronomists, we are going to look at plant pathologists, we are also going to go for plant entomologists, soil scientists, plant breeders, and so on and so forth. And in the environment, to do with the environment, we look for those that will be involved in like agrometeorology and climate change and so on. So for the human resources, is actually a multifaceted, multidisciplinary teamwork. And then for the materials that we are talking about, we are going to now get with this approach, we are now going to go for state-of-the-art facilities and equipment that we are now going to really install in our laboratory. So it's going to be a complete composite thing that is going to entail all this, and at the end of it all, we will have all these components really on ground to be able to produce the product that actually we are talking about, we want to go for.
The Center of Excellence in Bauchi will not be left unsupported. The federal government, through the triple helix method, is improving critical infrastructure like feeder roads and water resources that encourage investment and, more importantly, establishing a framework to resolve the long-standing herder-farmer conflict so that local producers will be encouraged to embark on backward integration. Sourcing milk locally will reduce the cost of production for domestic players and, in turn, lower prices for milk, making it more affordable to Nigerians. And that is the paradigm shift.